people, and let's say that they're out camping, and they're hiking through the woods, and they have their flashlights out and turned on, shining full beam. And it's a bright, sunny day, and the sun is shining. What's wrong with this picture? Yeah. Remember that. It'll be important later. Let us pray. Oh God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. So Christianity has so many beautiful, symbolic, cosmic, grand, abstract themes and ideas. Christianity gives us Word made flesh, bread of life, living water. Love your neighbor. Take up your cross and follow me. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And don't forget that everyone is your neighbor. It also gives us the idea of the light of the world. This is beautiful imagery, and it's used a lot. Christmas does not have a monopoly on the symbol of light. Light figures prominently in the celebrations of Hanukkah, of Diwali, Kwanzaa. Light is an important part of cultural celebrations. I mean, what would a birthday be without candles and cake? When the people of this community gathered last Saturday to honor those who had died in Newtown, how did we gather but with a candlelight vigil? You go into a Catholic church, you see candles lit in prayers for people in memory of loved ones who have passed. Light is a big deal. It's important. Right? It's a central theme. And it's so important that sometimes it can become cliche. You know, we talk about let your light shine out, this little light of mine. You know, people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. We talk about light a lot. And at the risk of it becoming something just sort of abstract and out there and even airbrushed and kind of la-la, if you know what I mean, not grounded. And I don't want to talk about light in that way tonight. I want to talk about light in a way that's appropriate to Jesus. I want to talk about light in a way that befits a being who was birthed, a human birth. Now, if you can say anything about birth, you can say that it's miraculous, yes, but it's also messy, is it not? I mean, it involves work and blood and fluids, and sweat and struggle and some pain. It's a messy enterprise. So not only was Jesus born a human birth, but he was also born to a couple who had been displaced from their homes because of the policy of an oppressive regime. And so if we're going to talk about Jesus as the light of the world, we need to do it in a really gritty, grounded way. Because I want each one of us to think about the fact that God's light lives in us, and it shines in us. And I don't want to talk about that in a cliche or airbrushed way. I'm thinking of specific examples of people letting their light shine. And that's really the meaning of Christmas, is it not? These are examples. I only have to go back about a week just to think of the examples that I'm going to give you. Right? I learned just today of a couple named Liz and Steve Alderson. They live in Bedford, so some of you might know of them. They lost their son, 25-year-old son, in 9/11. And they have responded to this tragedy by creating a foundation in his memory and in his honor. And this foundation goes into the most war-ravaged parts of the world and establishes and then supports mental health clinics for people who have lived through unspeakable atrocities, tragedies, and trauma. They make sure that people everywhere have access to quality mental health care. So So they've taken great tragedy and loss and tried to shine some light onto it. I think of just a little bit over a week ago, the teachers in Newtown and the sacrifice that they made to protect their students. Or I think of the first responders who were there in the scene. Ordinary, everyday people letting their light shine. Even simpler ways. I'm thinking about a family here in our own church, has teenage kids and older kids too, and they spent their Christmas Eve today in Far Rockaway. Occupy Sandy was hosting a potluck and a variety show, and they went down there to spread some light into the lives of people who were still displaced after Hurricane Sandy. I think of two other families who approached me just within the past few days and said, Pastor Melissa, do you know of any opportunities happening on Christmas Day, any service projects that we could get involved in? These are families with younger children, and they just want to teach their children that Christmas is about more than opening presents. And they want to spend a good chunk of their Christmas Day giving to others. Everyday, ordinary people. I think of a couple of different people I know who have had the experience just very, very recently, not of shining their light for others, but shining a light in their own lives. Because sometimes, we have certain habits or patterns or ways of relating to other people or addictions, or you name it. We have certain things that we don't want to see in our own lives. And we work really hard to cover those up. We all do it. I mean, some of us have worse things than others at different times in our life. But we work really hard to just keep them covered. And I can think of just a couple of people just recently who had the courage to simply shine a light on an unhealthy pattern in their lives. And I'll tell you, it's miraculous. Just the very act of shining a light on it, of acknowledging it, of simply noticing it, has already put things into motion, has already made things start to shift for them. Because I think when we just step forward, when we step out just a little bit in faith and shine a light, that God comes and meets us, magnifies that light. Later on, when we sing Silent Light, we're going to start with just one candle. Right? And before you know it, the entire sanctuary is going to be filled with light. It just takes a little bit. And I tell you, in really miraculous ways, God can just take our little bit and shine it out into the world in ways that we couldn't have imagined. And so there are two things that I want us to think about in regards to light tonight. And that's the first one, all right? Shine your light in just ordinary, everyday, gritty ways, in real life. Right? And then the second thing that I want us to remember about light goes back to the opening scene, the hypothetical situation of the people out in broad daylight with their flashlights on. I mean, the reason that was a silly scene is because you don't need to shine a light when it's not dark. But John's Gospel does not have a nativity story. Did you know that? It doesn't have a story of the birth of Jesus. It just starts with beautiful poetry. And a piece of that poetry was, the light shines in the darkness. In the darkness. And the darkness did not overcome it. What that says to me is that God does not sit back and wait for us to get our lives together. God doesn't wait for us to do things right and fix the world before sending God's light to us, before sending God's presence to us. No, God sends God's light right in the midst of the grittiness. We ask ourselves, especially over the last week or more, why this is such a broken world. It's easy to lose some hope if we just look at the world around us. And I tell you, I've read and thought up and come across hundreds and hundreds of answers to that question of why there's so much darkness in this world of ours. And none of the answers is satisfying. None of the answers to why is going to satisfy us. So I cannot tell you why there's darkness in the world, but I can tell you that there is darkness in the world. And I can also tell you that better than to curse the darkness is to, what? Light a single candle. So simple, almost in danger of being cliche, but now, especially this year, we need to hear this. We need to take this in. We need to remember those words, that it's better to light a candle than curse the darkness. We need to remember to look for the helpers, and that's where the hope is. There are so many helpers, aren't there? So many. We need to remember the words of Martin Luther King, that darkness cannot put out darkness. Only light can do that. That hate cannot destroy hate. Only love can do that. And the source of light, the source of love, it's infinite. Thank God for that, because sometimes it seems like we're just about used up. And when it feels like we're just about used up, all we have to do is put out just a little bit. And God, the universe, however you want to think of it, comes to meet us and to remind us that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not, does not, will not overcome it. This is the good news. Amen?